Okay, let's dive in. Screens. They're just everywhere in kids' lives now, aren't they? At home, out and about. And parents, well, we're all trying to figure out that balance. How much is okay? How much is too much? So today we're doing a deep dive into what the research actually says about childhood screen time. We want to pull out the really important stuff from our sources, look at the potential effects, cognitive, emotional, social, government, if screen use isn't managed well.
Yeah, and it's crucial to start by saying parents often use screens for totally valid reasons. Getting through dinner peacefully, maybe grabbing 5 minutes to yourself, keeping kids entertained while waiting. We get it. Life is demanding. But the tricky part is when screens become the default strategy, especially for managing behavior. That's where we start seeing some, well, developmental roadblocks.
Ah, okay. So it's less about occasional use and more about that reliance on it for management. That's the key difference. And when we talk development, the brain is obviously front and center. Let's unpack some of those impacts. What are we seeing there?
It's pretty striking, especially with the little ones, say under 5. Those really fast-paced, high-contrast cartoons and games, they can seriously overstimulate a young, developing brain. What that often looks like is, well, shorter attention spans, difficulty focusing on things that aren't quite so flashy, like, a book or a conversation. And longer term, this can connect to delays in developing those crucial executive functions, things like planning ahead, controlling impulses, managing emotions. Kids need real-world interaction for that.
Real-world interactions, right. And it's not just the brain's processing skills. Sleep gets hit too, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. That blue light emitted from screens is a big culprit. It actually tells the brain to start producing melatonin.
Melatonin, the sleep hormone.
Exactly. So using screens before bed means it takes longer to fall asleep, and the sleep quality itself is worse.
Yeah.
Which, of course, messes with memory consolidation, mood regulation, learning. Everything's connected.
Okay, so less sleep, trouble focusing. What about things like creativity? What happens during that screen time that isn't happening?
That's a huge point. What's lost is often imaginative play. That unstructured make-believe time is absolutely fundamental for early learning. When kids are just passively watching something, they're not engaging that creative muscle. Constant entertainment actually prevents boredom. And kids need a bit of boredom. It's the space where their own ideas start to bubble up.
Right. Boredom is a feature, not a bug.
Mm.
You mentioned attention spans earlier. Is there a link emerging between this kind of fast-paced screen exposure and conditions like, say, ADHD?
Well, research is showing a correlation. Early and excessive exposure to that rapid-fire content is linked to symptoms that look quite similar to ADHD. Things like real difficulty shifting attention away from a screen back to something non-digital, like listening to instructions or focusing on a quieter activity.
I guess this ties into language and social skills too, because watching a video isn't like having a conversation.
Not at all. Even if it's educational content, it's passive. Language learning is dynamic. It needs that back and forth. Kids learn nuance, tone of voice, facial expressions, empathy, all that critical social stuff through real-time interaction with actual people. You just don't get that from a screen.
Okay, so we see these behavioral things, but you mentioned earlier there was actual neurological evidence too, from brain scans like MRIs. What are they showing?
Yeah, the findings are quite compelling. Some studies on kids with heavy screen use show less integrity in the brain's white matter.
White matter. That's like the brain's wiring connecting different areas.
Exactly. So less integrity means slower, less efficient communication between brain regions. This impacts language, reading skills, cognitive control. They're also seeing changes in the prefrontal cortex activity that's the bit responsible for planning, focus, decision-making. And perhaps most concerning, some studies show reduced gray matter density in areas vital for empathy and emotional regulation, the very areas that help us connect with others and manage our feelings.
Wow, so actual structural and functional changes.
Yeah.
And how does this play out long-term, behaviorally?
Well, looking down the road, studies link higher amounts of early screen time with increased risks for anxiety and depression later in adolescence. There's also a correlation between excessive media, especially the really stimulating or violent kind, and issues like increased aggression and difficulties with emotional self-control.
Okay, this is a lot to take in. So, given all this, what's the practical advice? How do parents find a healthy balance? What do the experts, like the pediatric associations, recommend?
The American Academy of Pediatrics has pretty clear guidelines based on age. For babies under 18 months, the recommendation is basically no screens except for video calls with family.
Okay, none before 18 months except chats. What about toddlers?
18 to 24 months, if you introduce screens, choose really high-quality programs, and this is key, watch with them, interact, talk about what you're seeing.
Makes sense. And then preschool age.
2 to 5 years old. The guideline is limited to 1 hour per day. Again, high-quality content and preferably watch together.
1 hour max with interaction. And older kids? 6+.
For school-aged kids and teens, it's less about a specific number and more about setting consistent limits, making sure screen time doesn't push out other essential things.
Like sleep, physical activity, homework, family time, face-to-face interactions.
Precisely. Those things need to be prioritized.
So limiting screen time is one part. What about the other side? Encouraging alternatives.
Absolutely. Think about all the amazing things kids can do off-screen. Sensory play, building forts, reading books together, storytelling, drawing, playing outside, board games. These activities build the brain in ways screens simply can't. And importantly, don't underestimate the value of just quiet time, or even those boring moments like waiting in line.
Right, those moments actually build patience.
They build patience, tolerance for frustration, and the ability to entertain oneself internally. Those are really valuable life skills.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the core message seems to be screens can be tools, sure, used moderately with oversight. They have a place, but they absolutely cannot replace the rich, real-world, physical, social, and emotional experiences that fundamentally shape a child's developing brain.
Exactly. And relying on them too often, especially as a crutch for managing emotions or behavior, can genuinely interfere with that natural development. It can lead to longer-term issues with learning, how kids behave, and their ability to form healthy relationships.
So here's something to think about as we finish. Considering everything we've just discussed, how might you, listening now, reevaluate the role of boredom or quiet screen-free time in a child's day? What kind of real-world explorations could that open up?